In the bustling neighborhood of Osu in Accra stood a small but striking barbering shop known as Lady's Trim. The shop had a reputation that intrigued everyone in the area. Despite the many barbering shops around, there was something unique about Lady's Trim. It only served female customers. Initially run by the late Kwame Doe, the shop was now owned by a young man named Kofi Doe, Kwame Doe's son. Every morning, the shop would open at 7 a.m. sharp, and soon after, ladies of all ages would begin to arrive. The women came from all walks of life: students, working professionals, mothers, and even elderly women. But what puzzled the people of Osu was that anytime a man ever stepped foot in the shop, he was refused entry. Sometimes, men came snooping just to see what was happening in the shop that prevented them from serving male customers. Some people started spreading rumors that Kofi was having sexual relations with his customers. Kofi was a young, ambitious man who had always admired his father's work. However, unlike his father, Kofi believed in modernization and inclusivity. He decided to break away from the tradition and open the shop to both men and women, hoping to attract more customers and expand the business. He changed the shop's name to Doe's Barbering Shop. At first, Kofi's decision seemed to be a success. Men from all over Osu began to flock to the shop, eager to experience what their wives, sisters, and mothers had raved about for years. Business boomed, and Kofi was pleased with his decision to cater to everyone. The shop was always full. The place was always lively. He employed extra staff to help service the crowd of people that were storming the shop. But after a few weeks, something strange began to happen. The men who had visited the shop started to experience bizarre and troubling symptoms. One by one, they fell ill, their health rapidly deteriorating. Some were struck by sudden madness, their once clear mind clouded with confusion and delusions. Others developed mysterious illnesses, their bodies wasting away without any medical explanation. At first, Kofi dismissed these occurrences as mere coincidences, but as more and more men reported similar issues after visiting the shop, he grew increasingly concerned. The once thriving business now cast a shadow of fear and uncertainty. The men who had visited the shop avoided it like a plague, and the rumors about the shop's cursed nature spread like wildfire throughout Osu. Kofi was at a loss. He had never believed in the supernatural or in curses, but the evidence before him was too strong to ignore. The decline in his male customers' health after visiting the shop was undeniable. In desperation, he began to question his decision to open the shop to men. What had his father known that he didn't? Why had Kwame Doe refused to cut men's hair all those years? Unable to shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong, Kofi made a decision. He would return the shop to its original state, and only women would be allowed to have their hair cut at Doe's barber shop. It was a tough call, especially after the effort he had put into modernizing the business. But the safety of his customers was more important than anything else. The men of Osu were baffled by Kofi's sudden change in policy. They had heard the rumors about the strange occurrences, but found it hard to believe that something as simple as a haircut could cause such consequences. Many were upset, feeling discriminated against, and they demanded answers. Why were they being turned away? What was Kofi hiding? despite the growing pressure, Kofi remained tight-lipped. He couldn't bring himself to admit that he didn't fully understand the reason himself. All he knew was that something was terribly wrong and he needed to protect both his customers and his father's legacy. But he had questions and he knew he couldn't ignore them forever. Determined to uncover the truth, Kofi decided to dig into his father's past. He began by speaking to his mother, hoping she might shed some light on why his father was only servicing women. But his mother was just as puzzled as Kofi. She had never questioned her husband's practices, trusting his judgment completely. Next, Kofi turned to his father's old friends and colleagues. He spent days visiting the elderly men who had known Kwame since his youth, hoping they could provide some insight. But all they could offer were vague recollections of Kwame being a private man who kept his reasons to himself. Frustrated but not deterred, Kofi decided to visit the one person he had always avoided, Nana Osei, the town's spiritualist. Nana Osei was a man of great wisdom and was rumored to possess knowledge of things beyond the ordinary. Kofi had never believed in such things, but he was desperate. Nana Osei welcomed Kofi into his humble abode with a smile. The old man had heard of Kofi's troubles and had been expecting his visit. After offering Kofi a seat, Nana Osei began to speak without Kofi even asking a question. "Your father was a good man, Kofi," Nana Osei began, his voice calm and measured. But like all men, he had his fears and his burdens. When he first opened the barber shop, business was low. He struggled to attract customers, and his dream of providing for his family seemed to slip further away with each passing day. Out of desperation, your father sought my help, Nana Osei continued. But I was not the one who could help him. Instead, he was directed to someone else, a spiritualist, Nana Agrada, who offered him a way to ensure the success of his business. But as with all things that seemed to be too good to be true, there was a price. Kofi felt a chill run down his spine as Nana Osei's words sank in. What was the price? He asked. The spiritualist made your father perform certain rituals, Nana Osei explained. You need to go and see the spiritualist. Nana Osei showed Kofi where to find him. Kofi went and the spiritualist narrated everything to him. A live cow was buried behind your father's shop to draw customers, he said. But your father was asked to bury 2 cows, male and female, but he buried only one without knowing the implication. After the ritual, he realized that only females were coming to the shop, so he came back to ask me why. Then he told me that he buried only 1 cow when he was supposed to bury 2. Your father was disobedient, so the charm worked for only women. No man's hair could ever be cut in that shop. If that rule was broken, the consequences would be severe. Kofi's mind raced as he connected the dots, the illnesses, the madness. It was all because he had unknowingly broken the pact his father had made. The curse had been triggered the moment he had allowed men to step foot in the shop. Kofi was devastated by the revelation. His father had never told him about the pact, perhaps out of shame or a desire to protect him. But now the burden of that secret had fallen on Kofi's shoulders. He realized that his father's choice to only serve women wasn't just a business decision. It was a matter of life and death. Is there any way to break the curse? Kofi asked, his voice trembling with fear and hope. Nana Agrada shook his head sadly. The pact your father made was binding, Kofi. The only way to keep the curse at bay is to continue honoring the agreement. No man can ever have his hair cut in that shop. That is the only way to protect your customers and yourself. Kofi nodded, accepting the truth he had uncovered. The legacy of Lady Stream was now clearer than ever, and he understood that it was his duty to protect that legacy no matter the cost. With a heavy heart, Kofi returned to the shop the next day. He took down the sign that had welcomed both men and women and replaced it with the old Lady's Stream. He felt a sense of peace knowing that he was doing what needed to be done. The women of Osu soon returned to the shop, and the atmosphere of warmth and comfort was restored. The shop once again became a haven for women, a place where they could relax and be pampered without fear. As for the men of Osu, they eventually accepted the change, though many remained curious about the true reason behind it. But Kofi kept the secret, knowing that some things were better left in the past. And so Lady's Dream continued to thrive, just as it had under Kofi's father. Kofi learned to respect the traditions and choices his father had made, even if he didn't fully understand them at first. The curse was never spoken of again, and the shop remained a sanctuary for the women of Osu, a place where they could feel safe and beautiful, just as it was always meant to be.